All right, think there was outrage over the government initially calling the Benghazi attack a spontaneous protest over an internet video? Wait until the critics hear this. The Assistant Secretary of State who resigned his post over the attack is reportedly still working for the government, and the other 3 officials who were suspended are expected to return to their jobs. Mike Baker says this is a travesty. Mike's a former CIA covert operations officer and president of global security firm Diligence. Mike, we had thought that these 4 people were fired or resigned over the Benghazi attacks. In fact, they're still working for the government.
Right, and we thought that because that's what the administration basically told us. And they said heads are going to roll. And this accountability review board report, it's got teeth to it, and things are really going to happen. And here's not a shock to most people, I think, at this stage of the game, unfortunately. But, you know, Washington, no accountability, lack of consequences, it doesn't happen.
So, Mike, apparently this Assistant Secretary of State, is it Assistant Secretary of State, changed jobs,
right.
Literally went across the office and took another desk.
Exactly. What this is that, you know, you have to kind of parse the words here. But first of all, it's very difficult to get fired from the federal government. It's a very, very secure long-term position, regardless of where you are within the federal government, no matter how egregious the problems are. And as the report pointed out, this is a series of systematic failures that took place over a long period of time. As you mentioned, the Assistant Secretary for Diplomatic Security, where, according to Admiral Mullen and Pickering, the fellows that wrote this report, that's where the rubber hit the road, they said. He basically, instead of resigning, most people think of resigning as you hand in your letter, you walk out the door, and now I got to find a new job. What that really meant is he's just kind of handed in his political appointment. He's still at the State Department. The other 3, basically, they're just being reassigned. They've been put on ice, essentially, and this happens in the government. And, you know, so this is nothing new. I don't want to make this sound as if this is the first time this sort of thing has ever happened. Unfortunately, it's not.
No, and Mike, it kind of reminds me of the whole Fast and Furious situation where there were a couple of agents in the field along the border, and we had heard that they were being fired or let go, and turns out all they did was they were called in the Justice Department, brought them back to Washington, D.C. to work at a desk instead of the field.
Right, and whether it's, you know, so you remember the GSA scandals and the party scandals and the people just being sort of repositioned, as it were, whether it's that or whether it's something as serious as this where people lost their lives, the process, unfortunately, means that you get shuffled around. But it is, unfortunately, it's indicative of the way that this administration, oddly, has been dealing with the Benghazi issue from the very start. There's a lack of transparency. There seems to be an inability to just speak the truth. So they talked about the Assistant Secretary resigning, assuming that everybody would think what they thought, which is that he's gone. And really what he did, again, is a political appointment, a presidential appointment. He basically handed that in and, like you said, walked across the hall. The other 3, they will probably end up in other jobs. Frankly, what should have happened was the Secretary of State should have stepped down. That's where the rubber hits the road. It's her department. It's her responsibility. But, of course, you know, this whole story has been about insulating her for the 2016 run.
Right. Mike, we got to leave it there. Mike Baker, former CIA operative.
Sure.
Boy, can't figure out what it takes to fire someone in the feds. Mike, got to leave it there.